If I weren't an Italian native speaker, would I even begin learning this language? This is the million-dollar question we're answering today. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I am Paulina, and today I'd love to dive right into a conversation I've had with a friend of mine on Instagram, and we were chatting about would we be learning respectively our native languages if they weren't our native languages. So I'll give you a moment. If you want to, you can share your own answer right down in the comments. Let me know. What's your native language and would you be willing to learn that? So I am an Italian native speaker and I have made this video also in Italian on my second channel. So I leave the link somewhere over here. So if you're studying the language, you can check that out. Instead, today I'm sharing what I think about this and what steps would I be taking chapter after chapter right through the video. I am deeply fond of Italian culture. I am forever grateful that I was born here, that I just don't have to think about conjugations. I don't have to think about what verb to use, what auxiliary to use, idioms. They just come right off the cuff. Instead, when you're learning a second, a third, a fourth, etc. language, you have to think about it more. You just need to analyze it a bit more. Even the way I gesticulate, even my gestures, they're so Italian coded. Even when I'm speaking another language, I feel like I'm applying some of my Italian ism. So yeah, I mean, your native language shapes profoundly who you are, but it doesn't mean that you cannot learn other languages. It doesn't mean that you can't be very advanced in other languages. I can't really tell you if I'd be learning Italian, but I can tell you that there are ways and methods in which it would probably be easier to approach compared to what I've done with English. Grammatica, 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 grammatica. So let me begin by telling you that the way I have learned English was profoundly wrong. And even though now I'm quite satisfied with my level and I'm still learning, I'm still trying to improve on a daily basis. At the same time, I know that my method was so wrong because I actually had no method whatsoever. I was attending the Italian elementary, middle, and high school. And here in Italy, it is mandatory to learn English. It took me so many years that it's just ridiculous. For English, I started when I was 6, and I started to feel like I could actually speak in English when I was around probably, 15, 16. You do the maths, it's like almost 10 years, which is absurd if you ask me. So I had the wrong method. And even though now the results are okay, I'm satisfied, but I still want to improve in English. I feel like you could speed the entire process so much more and you could make it so much more efficient. So let's see what a good method may look like. I'll never get tired of saying this, but you need a source of motivation. And it's not that toxic kind of motivation of you wake up at 5 a.m. and you study 5 hours every single day until you burn out. No. We don't want that kind of motivation. I mean, if you want to do it, you may go on, but it's not healthy. And probably 99.9% of people will fail if you have this kind of motivation, this kind of goal. When I think about goals and objectives in language learning, I always think about having a reason that builds, let's say, a psychological structure, that psychological foundation, that intrinsic motivation, that reason that doesn't matter if you're tired, if you're sad, you want to squeeze in your routine a little bit of that language learning, moment. It could be 20 minutes, it could be 30, it could be any amount of minutes, but it's about having that consistency and that desire of doing that. These goals could be very different from each other. With English, for instance, my goal was to succeed at school and to have good grades, which is not intrinsic motivation. And in fact, even though I had good grades, my English speaking skills were not good. Absolutely not. And to tell you, actually, a good motivation I had was traveling, exposing myself to real people who could not speak Italian. So I had to find another way to communicate with them, English. Another source of motivation for me was learning a new hobby, because I learned how to do makeup, how to do nails, and all the YouTube videos were in English. So I wanted and I needed to understand what people were saying in those videos. And also then when I started to vlog and make videos by myself, in that case, I really wanted to do them in English. So I had to learn how not to say BS. The goals could be extremely different. You could have as a goal moving to another country. So maybe you want to move to Italy. I'm sorry to let you know, but Italians are not good English speakers. I mean, of course, there are exceptions, but it's not as easy as it is in other countries to find a good Italian speaker of English, a good English speaker in Italy. Another reason why you may want to learn Italian or any other language is because you want to travel to that country and you want to be polite, you want to speak using the actual language, the language used by the locals. Maybe you know somebody, you're getting to know a partner, or maybe you have a family member, maybe you have a friend, and you just want to speak with them. So that's another reason. Once you get that desire to get started, at first, you must accept that everything will be probably overwhelming, fun, odd, bizarre, and there's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of questions won't be answered right away. You're basically starting learning a language again from scratch, and you have to reset your brain for some reasons. I mean, this is something I learned the hard way, because you're not translating from your language to another language. You are rewiring your brain. And why do Italians have this alphabet? Why is this letter silent? Why do they have this writing system? Why they don't capitalize I? Why do they say numbers in this way? Everything is going to be a why, and everything's going to be uncertain, strange, new, especially new. And that element of novelty can be fun and can also be frustrating. So if you're learning Italian, be ready that there are going to be things that you won't understand right off the bat. And that's okay. I think a really important ingredient is trusting the process and trusting the language. So I always say that something exists for a reason in languages. Somebody had the need of saying something, and that's why that thing was created, let's say. Or something became so popular, so necessary in communication, and that's why we have it. And maybe in a culture it makes no sense, and in another it does. That's not for us to judge, to be fair. And a lot of times we try to understand every single word, we try to understand every single comma, every little scribble we see on a page, we want to know why. At first, we probably won't have the capacity of doing that. So what I really, honestly, with an open heart, what I recommend is just trusting the language and immersion. I realized immersion is essential, because immersion could take any shape and any form. You could immerse yourself by watching videos, going to a country, meeting somebody, watching TV shows, changing your phone settings. All of that sits with us in our brain somehow. At first, we basically know nothing about the language, so we must have some kind of model. How can you replicate a language? How can you replicate sentences? How can you repeat stuff if you don't understand what you're saying? If you don't understand what you're reading? If you don't understand what you're listening to? Understanding, so absorbing and trying to figure out, and being in touch with the language, that's so crucial, especially in the first phase. And it's also important to repeat. It's important to notice some chunks, notice the parts of the language that are more frequent. So, okay, I'll probably need that more. And it all becomes quite automatic with time. A key rule, in my opinion, is not putting too much pressure on yourself. And that's why I don't trust people who say, oh, I learned to speak a language at a B2 level in 2 weeks. Even if you were able to understand a lot, maybe you could learn by heart and memorize how to say certain things on a given topic. But this is just disrespectful for the language, I believe, because having a good level in a language and speaking a language, it really depends what you mean by speaking. I, for instance, love the idea of being able to share my opinions, my dreams, the facts that are about me. I'd love to order a coffee. I'd love to be able to talk about what I did in the past, what I'm doing now, what I'd love to do in the future. And all of these layers, they need time. It's a process. So also in Italian, we don't say things and we don't conceive time as English speakers conceive it. I also speak Polish. Time is conceived in a different way as well, let alone other languages. Immerse yourself in the language. Just try to listen to different dialects, different people speaking, different ages, from different contexts. That's so important. And that's when grammar, speaking, writing, these things will come at a certain point. And as for the question, how frequently should you be listening or reading or try to repeat, maybe doing some shadowing in Italian? Like what's the frequency? I truly believe that every day or every other day, it's a very good method. For me, that has done wonders. When a person learns maybe 1 hour weekly, when a person is trying to learn only in one specific moment of the week, rather than dividing and organizing throughout the entire week, you can see a difference, like you can sense the difference. I personally love the concept of doing something on a Tuesday and then maybe something on Wednesday, perhaps a little bit more on a Thursday, and okay, Friday I'll listen to songs, and Saturday maybe I don't have the time, so I'll just, I don't know, repeat something. On Sunday, I could maybe try to speak to myself and describe what I'm doing. These small chunks every day make such a difference compared to one session from one Tuesday to the next Tuesday. For me, every day or every other day is the best solution. And you could listen to songs in Italian, you could watch YouTube videos, you could watch input channels, you could watch any TV series. I forgot to mention that textbooks are essential when it comes to me and my personal experience, because they give you a sort of structure and you don't have to figure out what comes first and what comes second and what's next. When you have textbooks, which are not grammar only, but they have reading, they have some tables, they have explanations, and there are some curiosities. There's a lot about the language in a textbook. If you have that, you really know what you should begin with, and then you know what comes next. Your intuition could be wrong because maybe in your language, in your native language, something is supposed to be learned before, but maybe in Italian, it's not. Having a textbook or some sort of curriculum helps a lot to preserve the structure and that kind of mental order, because it's just a lot of work. If you are disorganized, it really depends on your style, on your learning style, but I'm a very organized person, so having a textbook helps. And then you get to the point of, okay, next month or in the next few months, I'm traveling to Italy. How do I speak to people? And that's where the heavens gates open, because I think there are plenty of techniques to speak, to be a good speaker, to build up that confidence. And you could start with shadowing, which helps a lot with pronunciation. You could speak to yourself. I've made some videos on the channel talking about how to learn how to speak and produce language. And this is something you must do. I know it's not comfortable, but let me tell you, Italians are very forgiving when it comes to accent, when it comes to pronunciation. We don't care. We are very happy that a person is trying to learn Italian. Siamo molto contenti. We are truly happy. We're truly proud of a person trying to speak our language. Italians are harsher with Italians themselves when they're trying to speak English. So I could probably get more shit by Italian speakers about my English rather than any other foreigner trying to speak Italian. And that's a fact. That's how we are. We are built this way. You could try finding a teacher, a tutor. You could try finding people who want to make some tandem, so speak and learn a language. There are so many opportunities. And in this way, if you speak, you also realize where you need grammar. Grammar is not torture. It's not something you must learn to speak a language. Grammar is something that helps you understand how to produce language, in my opinion. And that's something that helps you be more concrete and also more autonomous. When I want to say something, I can produce on my own my thoughts and then my speech. I don't have to rely on a textbook and I have to find the exact thing I want to say. I could swap a verb, I could change the tense, I could, become a master. You can see the underlying foundation. That's so useful once you have the input, once you do understand more or less, once you have tried to understand. I started learning English with grammar. I was so deeply confused, and it took me, again, 9 or 10 years. Whereas now, when I'm practicing Spanish or French, I can communicate much more, even though I'm making mistakes. I ordered coffee and I spoke with Spanish people. These were not long and difficult conversations, but I had more confidence. I felt so much more at ease, and I was okay with making mistakes. And I wasn't thinking about what tense should I use, what structure should I use. That really didn't matter to me. And then let me share the final point, which I think is the most painful one, but it's essential, it's necessary, which is stop being an ostrich. The ostrich effect is when you are so afraid or scared of something that you'd rather avoid dealing with that problem or that situation, and you're never managing it. You're never dealing with it, even though dealing with that wouldn't be as harmful as it is to neglect it. Let's say you have a difficulty with articles or maybe conjugations. These are two hard things when you're learning Italian. So, okay, I'm ignoring articles, I'm ignoring conjugations. They will still exist in the Italian language, no matter how hard you try to forget about them, no matter how hard you try to speak or read or understand without paying attention to these, they'll still exist. And if you truly want to improve, if you want to go the extra mile and you want to step up your speaking game, your understanding game, and you want to stop playing around and fooling around, at some point you'll need to learn these things. I think every learner should take a moment after some months and just figure out, okay, these are my strengths, these are my weaknesses. So with my weaknesses, I must not be an ostrich. I must not hide my head in the sand or beneath the earth, which is, I think, a myth, but you get the idea, you get the metaphor. You should not be hiding from those problems. You should be facing those issues. And the more you try, the better it is, because then you'll realize you'll improve so much that you'll say, should have done it earlier, should have done it before. That's a reaction a lot of people have. There are those topics which scare us or are extremely difficult for us. So that's absolutely normal. So take your time and think about what you have been an ostrich about when it comes to Italian. And I'd love to say thank you so much if you've got to this point of the video. Thank you so much. I'm starting again with this channel. It took me some time just to figure out how to plan out and how to schedule the videos and how to make valuable content. Thank you for your support. If you want to learn Italian, I have an entire channel dedicated to that. So you can listen to me speaking in Italian. We'll learn how to make spritz. We'll learn how to talk about a lot of different topics. So if you're interested, you can check that out. And I'll see you in my next video here. Thank you so much.